was a lot of good stuff, and we'll get to that. But let's start off with what was pretty disastrous outing in Saudi Arabia for the lineal heavyweight champion, the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, who barely snuck away with a victory, winning on two cards, one 96-93, the other 95-94, and then losing one 95-94 to boxing debuting Francis Ngannou, who, despite his MMA record, is a novice in the boxing ring. And in the third round, he landed kind of a cuffing left hand, caught Fury a little bit behind, and down he went. And I have never seen a look like that on Tyson Fury's face before. Not when he went down with Wilder or anything else. And he managed to sneak away with it. But Andy, for me, that look on his face, it spoke something specific. He was embarrassed. Absolutely embarrassed.
It should be, mate. To be fair, after all the talk and everything else, it was just an awful spectacle, in my opinion, at least. Just watching the guy basically struggle from time to time. I mean, I'll be honest, I thought he won the fight, but it was not convincing. He struggled with the size, probably the power, the strength, shall we say. And Ngannou, when he did cut loose with his shots, he was they were quick, there were power behind them. Definitely made Tyson think twice about it. But I just don't think he had sustained moments. I think Tyson was just he kind of like happy to get on the jab and the right hand and work it that way. But he was definitely had moments where he was toiling in the fight without doubt. Getting dropped like that, as I say, it will be an embarrassment for him at least. He has achieved great things, as coming back from what he's done. But at the same time, I just think over the last year, 18 months, it's like he's been treading water. Usyk was not impressed there last night. His gang is sitting there ringside, pissing their pants, watching that. If anything as well, okay, Fury might have got the nod, but Ngannou wins the night basically, because I think it was Rob I was speaking to actually last night when I said after about the fifth or sixth round, Ngannou looked like he was ready to gas, and somehow he seemed to hang in there, but he just didn't have the sustained moments in that. And Fury, I think, just kind of maybe just kind of like not easily picked away, but I mean, he kind of like gradually kind of like picked himself through the fight. He was don't think he was cut, but he was definitely there was blood coming from his top of his forehead. I think that might need a wee bit of time to heal. He was marked up running about one of the eyes. So yeah, look, it was just awful. I didn't catch much on the card, thankfully. I just seen what was on Twitter. Glad I didn't even invest looking at the legal stream until later on to the main event, and then obviously when I did get the legal stream going, it was 50 minutes until the main event happened. So I was getting ready to go to bed as well, but then obviously with the Tyson getting dropped, it made it a wee bit more interesting, and you kind of felt like, okay, can he hit him with something else and drop him? Because part of me seems to know, think actually, is Fury checked out? Is it a bad night? Has he undertrained? Has he overtrained? Has he not taken it seriously? Is he washed? Has he got the same desire? I don't know. A lot of question marks there and that as well, to be fair. And our man, Mr. Usyk, that as well. He's no, when they meet up with Tyson, that he wasn't really for much for clowning around in that. It seems to be all business for him just now. Fury spoke as well that December 23rd was going to be the date. Seems to be welching on that. So this will be a matter of watch this space going forward, unfortunately. So it was not great.
Mm. Yeah, like I've a bit of a theory on it. Sorry, Matty. I have a theory on it. Like, did the three fights back to back with Wilder take something from Fury? Because to me, he hasn't looked great since the third Wilder fight. Dillian White was a cakewalk for him. I mean, we saw what he was like with Jermaine Franklin after the fact. We saw him get fucking starched by Povetkin in Eddie's back garden. He was never going to offer a threat and he was chinny anyway. He's been knocked out every time he was beaten, so he was never going to offer a threat to Tyson or any kind of opposition or kind of any kind of adversity. Same with Derek Chisora, a fella he nearly killed 15 years beforehand, and probably look worse out against him the next time. And you can say maybe he's carrying him or he's not engaging, but I wondered, like, the three the concussive knockout, even though he woke up in the first fight against Wilder, he drilled him in the second fight. He held his feet. He didn't go down. But in the third fight, he got dropped twice. And like I just wonder, is he? Because it looked like that his equilibrium was gone like the minute he got hit. I have to say, you have to give massive credit to Francis Ngannou to be able to go in. I've never had a boxing fight before. Perform in such a big event, like a massive arena, all the stars of the world there, Ronaldo, the whole shebang, and he goes out with nothing to lose. And credit to Mike Tyson as a trainer too, because the way he threw that left hook, it was decent technique. He countered a straight right hand with a left hook and fucking clattered Fury. And I thought Fury looked gun shy afterwards. I thought he was scared to engage. I don't think he got his. Yeah, I don't think he.
It never occurred to him that could happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, maybe. Obviously, there's talk he took it lightly, but I listened to Andy Lee and Sugar Hill and talk about the full 12-week camp, and he was talking about him and Parker having really competitive sparring, and he says he took it, and this was before the fight, and he said he took it like any other camp, and he was there for the whole thing. Sugar Hill and Andy Lee were bullying last night. You could see the face on them afterwards. They weren't happy. Like, Fury did fuck all with Ngannou. Like, now what does that? I don't know. What does that say about boxing versus MMA? I don't know if it's a black eye on the sport. It's certainly a black eye on Tyson Fury because his fucking face is marked up like fuck. I did say that this would, if Ngannou could have done it, it probably would have fucking served him all right for holding up the heavyweight division and waiting out on this big massive payday, waiting us all out. And maybe Fury's paying the price for his own inactivity now. Like, he fights once a year now. He's a year off in between fights. Ngannou's inactive too, by the way. He hasn't fought in even longer, so that's and he's never fought a 10-rounder in his life. Like, so that's another thing and another bit of credit in his favor. But hugely disappointed for boxing, like, to see a guy like Fury take a shot like that. But it's going to be hard for people to have sympathy for him because of the way he's behaved over the last 2 years. We never spoke highly enough about Tyson Fury over the years and his achievements and what he did to the sport. And when he beat Wilder, we gave him all the praise in the world. But when you take two gimmies, the credit in the bank for that starts to go away. And then when you fucking set up an exhibition for yourself for just a ton of money while waiting out the heavyweight division, and whether he's responsible or not, I know he's banning talk sport and all now, but whether he's responsible or not, he waited out the heavyweight division, right? We got no fucking big fights. We didn't get him versus Anthony Joshua. Whether he's culpable or Joshua's culpable or Eddie Hearn's culpable or Frank Warren, whoever it is, we never got the fucking fight. And we got this exhibition match. And I was saying at the time, it would have served him right if Ngannou had to pull something out of the fire and fuck the bag up for everyone. Now, he didn't quite do that, but he definitely dropped Tyson Fury's stock last night because people, he's given ammunition to every Tyson Fury hater now to say an MMA guy making his debut had you fucking life and death. Had him life and death.
We've had Fury taking on about, I could take him in the cage, that type of thing. People forget, when Fury got dropped there last night, what would have happened in the cage?
It would have been over.
He would have got fist right to your fucking schnoz,
he
man.
He would have got fucked up big style.
Yeah.
No, he's never fighting in a cage, man. That's not Fury would say anything. He'd say anything. He'd fucking say anything. He's a bullshit artist. He knows how to sell a fight. But all the shit that they've been going on recently, banning talk sport and doesn't want anyone to fucking say anything bad, and the haters and the British government never gave him a thank you and this, that, and the third. And he has to go through, like, he talks so much, and I know most of the time 90% is bullshit, but he talks so much. He's after putting people off him with his behavior, with his big dosser stick, with the fucking sign the contract before the deadline. He's after putting people off. He's after turning people against him, and now he was the king of the world, and now he's got a fucking black eye after fucking going life and death with an MMA guy in a crossover fight. And Usyk will be rubbing his hands. Now, I still think he beats. I still think a fully fit and fully focused Tyson Fury beats Alexander Usyk. However, look at the last three Tyson Fury performances and see are they good. I don't think so. Like, I don't think Dillian White he needed to be good to beat Dillian White, and I don't think he was impressive against Chisora. I thought he fucking carried him. And then last night he could do fuck all with Ngannou. He didn't get back into the fight the way I'd expected. He wasn't commanding it off the jab. He was landing on Ngannou and it was having no effect. No, it's all right landing on Wilder.
Stepping in square.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
His footwork was awful, Rob. Just awful.
He's too heavy. Number one. Now, they said he looked good after a good camp, but he's too heavy at 270. He was talking about Sugar Hill saying that he should just weigh whatever he wants and come in and knock people out. But he wasn't putting a dent in Ngannou at all. So very unimpressive performance from a guy who's the lineal heavyweight champion of the world with a skill set that we've seen dazzle other heavyweights. To see him plodding and getting caught and fucking fighting to stay in the fight with a fella who's never had a pro boxing fight. Shit for boxing, shit for us as fans. It's farcical in terms of the event and what it was, and but that's besides the point. Money talks. The fight happened. Uh, Disappoint. Like I haven't even got it in me to like have a rant about it because I couldn't give a fuck because this boxing has been so shit lately, especially the heavyweights. For the last 2 years, it's been terrible. Like we had the 3 fights with Wilder, we had the 2 fights with Joshua and Usyk, but after that, waiting game. Even all the other heavyweights are waiting out now, like Andy Ruiz, Wilder, Volley. Nobody's fucking fighting anyone in the heavyweights. Like Zhilei Zhang is the only one active, and Zhilei Zhang, based off last night, Zhilei Zhang be in that fight with Tyson Fury in the fight for sure.
100%. It I don't know. Like you said, I don't know if maybe Fury won the battle, but ultimately Wilder won the war. Maybe the drinking and drugging got up to him a little
No,
bit.
certainly
Lifestyle.
the punishment that he took in 3 fights, mate. I mean, we'll never forget that right hand that Wilder landed on him. You see the actual force of the shot rippled in his back. Normal humans could not continue. You often wonder, would Fury even be able to take a shot like that again, But it's probably a bit of both. I think there's a bit of motivation. I think it's to do with maybe the age. But one thing is for certain, if he turns up like that against Usyk, there's going to be a few people raising eyebrows, not because there were loads who were saying that that they didn't think Usyk had the size, the power to really much bother Fury. I think there'll be a few people, revising that statement over the next couple of weeks and that. And again, as I say, you're not as good as your last fight, but that wasn't a good performance. And Usyk, with his activity, his better placement of shots. He sidesteps a bit Fury and that. I mean, I think it's a much tougher fight. And I keep saying to you guys, every time I think about Usyk against Fury, I think Fury against Cunningham. That's what I think. A guy who's constantly on the move, who's smaller, and he can get in and out of shots, that type of thing. And Fury he can get caught just standing in the squared up as you said, Matty, and gets caught with a shot over the top or down the middle, and it can catch him by surprise.
Yeah, I think Usyk. I don't know. I don't think Usyk is as active since he's gone up to heavyweight, where he doesn't have like the punch output that he had at cruiserweight, and I think it's going to be a cagey one. It's probably going to be a stinker, but anyway, we'll have to look at that closer to the time. But Fury can't come in at 270. I don't think against Usyk and look good. I know that. I think he has to be lighter. Like.
Yeah, and if there's anyone's having any sound issues in your Woodsox1311 said it here. YouTube Live been playing up to date with the football podcast and other live stuff, mostly sound cutting out. So I was wondering, hey, my connection, I'm getting a little cut out on Andy. I don't know exactly, but might be on the YouTube end of things. But we shall see. So my apologies on that one. Danny, are we going too far and just thinking that the Usyk fight happens no matter what? I mean, that was a pretty dejected Tyson Fury last night after that fight. That wasn't the singing jolly happy Gypsy King. That was a sad man who got away with one.
Evening, Matty. Yeah. Before I get to that, can I just have my little say on that? So, no way was there a 12-week camp. If it was 12 weeks, he spent 12 weeks fucking about because he didn't look in good shape. And there was almost an air of arrogance about him. I go back. I was ringside for the Chisora fight, and he didn't box great then. I felt like it was almost like you say. We spoke about it at the time. It was giving his mate a bit of a payday. So that's if you class this as him fighting, that's 2 he hasn't looked great in up to this point. One of the other things I kind of want to mention and maybe pick up on, and maybe see if anyone else thinks this as well. But I know you guys on the pod have spoken about kind of like the kind of crowds, the hangers on that, certainly with AJ, that he had at one point in time. The amount of people that he walked out into the ring with last night was unreal. There was about 20 followers. Like, does he need that many people? You know what I mean? Maybe that just shows maybe a lack of focus. I don't know. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem right to me.
I noticed that as well, mate. I mean, I don't know if it was the weigh-in or if it was after the fight. There was like big gang of them in the ring getting pictures taken or whatever it
Yeah.
was. And I noticed
mean,
that as well.
Even goes to show, they did that big photograph, didn't they, with all the kind of boxing kind of superstars from days gone
Yeah.
by, and the majority of his mob are all at the front of that picture. And it's like if you're the photographer trying to take a nice picture for a boxing magazine, you're like, can you lot fuck off, please, while I take this picture? Like and I haven't even mentioned his dad yet, but we don't even need to go there because we all know what goes on with him, and it's embarrassing.
The Poundland Hulk Hogan.
Exactly. So, yeah, he looked laboured last night. He looked like he didn't have a plan. I mean, yes, people say, yeah, he won the fight. But for the lineal heavyweight champion, the performance was nothing short of disgraceful, to be honest with you, against a debutant. Props to Ngannou. Make no mistake, he wasn't sensational, but for a first timer, I thought he was very composed. Whether it was the game plan or not, or whether it happened by accident to sit back and make Fury come onto him, it looked good from where I was sitting. The output was little, but he didn't need to throw hundreds of punches. I mean, he's a big guy. Big guys like him are not going to throw hundreds of punches. He just needed to sit back and make Fury come to him because he had nothing to lose. Fury had it all to lose, and he nearly lost it all last night. I thought that the knockdown punch was very good. I kind of vaguely resembles something that Wilder's thrown on him before, the back of the head, kind of that kind of clubbing shot, which obviously are not nice shots to take. Look. There's people calling for the WBC to remove his belt if he doesn't take this fight in December. And don't get me wrong, I'd love that, but it's not going to happen. While Fury holds that belt, the WC and he's given the WBC money and a platform to kind of, he's the WBC this, that, and the other. There's no way that they are taking that belt off of him.
Exactly, especially seeing as he says now he's retired from fighting in the UK. He's only going to fight in Saudi from now on. So what do you think is going to happen there? Like, they're going to fucking dance to his tune, aren't they?
Of course they are. They're just bowed down to it, and they have done for a while now. Like any other half decent sanctioning body would have said, "Well, hang on a minute." The next in line has been sitting there now theoretically for the last 2 years. You got to take it now, and obviously they've put no pressure on him, so that's not going to happen. But for boxing's sake, Usyk has to win now. Like it's and don't get me wrong, I want him to win. Like you take all of Tyson's credibility out the bag now because it's gone. Like it's absolutely gone. He has been farcical. All these fucking videos now and all that. It's come back to haunt him. I just think it was funny because when the Usyk Fury fight was first announced, some time ago. When was that? Was it meant to be August, wasn't it, or something like that? I can't remember now. But when it was first, they first kind of were talking about it, I was thinking to myself, well, it's got to be in Fury's favour. And then when they announced it this time for December, I'm thinking, well, probably a 50-50 now. And after seeing last night, I'm now thinking it's in Usyk's favour now. I'm thinking maybe 60-40 in Usyk's favour. And Andy made a great comparison there. Cunningham, Fury, smaller guy, footwork to die for, going to make it difficult. And it's going to be like if Ngannou can stand there and make Fury come onto him and try and put the pressure on, Usyk can very easily do very much the same. And Usyk's in and out work, some of the best in the game would be ideal for that, and he could nick rounds. It's that fight has got to happen in December. I'm sorry, Mr. Warren. You can't pull the wool over everyone else's eyes.
Fury
now
say that he breached a contract if he didn't take the fight.
That's what Usyk has been saying, and fair play. If he's breaching contract, then the WBC have to do something about it, but they won't do because obviously, like I say, they're deep in Fury's pockets now, so it doesn't matter. But like, if Usyk doesn't get that fight in December, and let's make it right. It's they shouldn't have taken this fight. Fury should have concentrated on boxing, not fucking this crossover stuff. Nobody wanted this. Well, not certainly I didn't anyway. Many people, fans of boxing, did not want to see this. They wanted to see Fury versus Usyk, and that was it. and yet we were made to see it last night, and it's come back to haunt him. And I'm sorry if he pulls out and says he can't do December because of injuries relating to this fight, then fucking strip him, because I've had enough now. It's stop pissing around with the public. You know, you've got your money off this. Give it to some people that actually want to fight for it, instead of sitting there and pissing around and telling everyone that you should be given everything because of what you've done for boxing. You haven't done anything the last 2 years.
They're not going to strip him, man.
They won't. But
he's so arrogant about it as well, because he knows they're not going to strip him, because he said he'd sit on it for a year the last time and retire. This guy's had a fake retirement in between all these fights as well, by the way. A lot of people would be hoping that he had fucking retired after that. Like,
yeah, but you know, any decent sanctioning body would say enough's enough now. You know, but that's it. I just hope it happens in December. That's all we can wait for now. That's all we can wish for, that fight happens in December, and that is it.
Yeah, hopefully it does happen. I think I already saw something about them trying to push it to January or February. If they're doing that, my guess would be February. I don't know. It's all pretty ridiculous at the end of the day, especially considering the talent that we know that Tyson Fury had. Did he have the fight beaten out of him by Wilder? Did his lifestyle choices do it to him? Was he unmotivated, or did he just run into a guy who was reasonably capable?
That's the thing as
Go
well.
ahead,
A lot
Rob.
of speculation, and there's been a lot of speculation recently in YouTube comments and other places on Twitter, and that Fury's back on the gear, like that he's heavily drinking and that he's taking coke or whatever, and he has looked like at certain events and stuff, like he looked like he was fucking wired and that. So, you know, possibly he's not living the life or whatever. I don't know, but whatever the fucking excuse is, the bottom line is he stunk the fucking place out last night. Absolutely stunk it out, and scraped to a win against an MMA fighter.
I'll tell you what, Des joining the call here. Des, what really got to me of all the shit in this fight, believe it or not, was the lack of effort from Fury in that 10th round, when the fight could have definitely been on the line. And I didn't see who got that 10th round. It was kind of a pick'em of shit, but he didn't. He just was befuddled, like at the end of the fight, and he just had no will to do something amazing. It's so much less than I expect out of him.
Yeah, I mean, Fury's not a buzzsaw type fighter, is he? I mean, a good Fury is a really good Fury, but a bad Fury is a really bad version of Tyson Fury. Last night we saw a bad version of Tyson Fury. I go back to what I think you said, Matty, and maybe Rob picked up on it. There is a very strong possibility, if last night is to be believed, and if what we saw is to be believed, and it wasn't rigged and it wasn't fixed, if it was organic, that it might just be that the Wilder trilogy have taken it all out of Tyson, because Nigel Benn was never the same after McClellan, Evander was never the same after Lennox, and DeGale was never the same after Badu Jack. And it could be that the Wilder trilogy, and if anyone's going to take it out of you, it's a big puncher like Wilder that can put you over like that. And he did put Tyson over, and he did smash him about a ring for a few rounds. Maybe we're just seeing a Tyson Fury that's peaked and he's on the come down now.
I think it's highly possible that his peak was probably the second Wilder fight. Well, do you think that was probably the best version of Fury we ever saw, Des?
We'll never know. I mean, he might have had more miles on the clock, but inactivity, COVID, Dillian White, Derek Chisora, he might have wasted that window of opportunity, because a fighter's only got a certain amount of miles on the clock. A good Tyson Fury is the best of his generation. I'm certain of that. But the way Tyson Fury looks, the way he carries himself, a bad Tyson Fury is a really bad Tyson. It's really bad to watch. And we're always going to celebrate him when he does well, and we're always going to hit him over the head when he does wrong. And last night, let's be clear, if what we saw was to be believed, Tyson Fury was really bad last night. He stunk the place out.
Yeah, very disappointing, considering especially what you consider they put behind that event. Liam Wynn hopping in there with 199, saying the fight was so bad it gave me grave man flu. Yes, Liam posted a picture. He looks god awful. I hope you're happy, Tyson, for making our friend Liam ill. Thank you, Liam, for passing along a little bit of love to the Asylum, though. We appreciate that. Joining us after a long absence, though, Ozzy Smith. First off, Oz, how was the cricket season?
The season was decent. Sadly, our first team succumbed to a second place finish on the last game of the season. But all in all, much improved. After that, I then ventured to the US and met up with the infamous Donald Trella and ate sushi with him in New York, which was an interesting experience. Particularly when the first place we went to, we weren't allowed entry as Don was absolutely leathered. And the owner of the bar basically went, "This guy is not coming in." But aside from that, it was fantastic.
Oh man, come to Colorado next time. I might smoke a lot of pot, but I'm pretty coherent through it all, and they let me in every establishment. I'm generally well liked.
Mate, I'm a Raiders fan. I don't need to go to Denver at all, so that won't be happening. We'll just meet in Vegas instead.
Well, there you go. There you go. I think you just missed all the good stuff, didn't you? You're like kind of right in the middle.
Oh no, mate, we did. We started in Orlando, flew to Vegas, did the Raiders Steelers game in Vegas, and then flew over to New York. So it was some trip.
Did you have any Chinese on the plane, mate?
I didn't know.
Like
I did not have any chicken balls, pork balls, salt and pepper chicken, curry sauce, nothing like that. However, though, in America, I saw many people that put John Fisher. They made him look slim. So
yeah, we're fucking fat, aren't we?
Mate, the amount of people I saw getting around on little shop mobilities, no wonder. I mean, I've seen people, we went into a little pizza place and one bloke ordered 2 litres of Coke for his drink. 2 litres! I mean, I'm sorry, no wonder.
40% of them apparently, Maddie, are clinically obese now. The Yanks, 40%. It's a high number.
40%.
Yeah, and I'm 30 pounds overweight. Not much. I think when you look at it compared to most Americans, I could lose 30 though. And my fear when hopping on airplanes is always how obese are the people that are going to be sitting next to me on this flight, because that really decides your comfort level is the fatness of the people next to you on the airplane.
Well, I weighed in this morning at 200 pounds on the nose, and it's the lightest I've been in 20 years. 20 years. I've been that way since
job, Rob.
20 years ago. Holy shit.
I
don't
am
know how the fuck
sorry
I'm
to
doing
hear
it.
the
I'm doing
bad.
everything bad, but anyway.
Well, I am sorry to hear that about your leg amputation, but it's good that you're down to 2 bills. But anyway, Oz, you had great fun in America. That's good. But I bet you didn't have great fun watching Fury. That was a mind-boggling performance as I watched it on my phone on a stream for free.
It was a baffling display, to be honest. I mean, I thought during the week, I saw him when he whipped his top off, and I thought, bloody hell, he looks big. As in, Tyson Fury's never a person who looks in fantastic condition ever. And that's absolutely fine because he's put in performances that show that you don't need to be ripped and shredded to put in a brilliant display. But I thought when he was on the, I think they were squaring up and John Fury also got involved as well. I thought, bloody hell, he looks big. And it says it all when I felt he was in better shape than when he boxed Seferi compared to when he boxed last night. And bear in mind, when he boxed Seferi, he was coming off a 3-year layoff, ballooned up to just short of 30 stone, completely out of shape, drank, ate, did drugs, pretty much everything you can name, and he was still in better condition then. And last night was just, he looked like a guy that claims to have a 12-week camp, but in that 12 weeks, he's pretty much just drank, ate, and not trained whatsoever. But even then, you would think that he would have too much for a guy that has never laced up a pair of gloves, never boxed, and never come anywhere close to realistically a boxing ring. And it was bizarre. That saying, I still believe that he won the fight last night. I had him by probably a couple of rounds. And it wasn't a brilliant display at all. He was awful. But at the same time, Francis Ngannou was a lot better than everybody expected. I don't think anybody last night predicted that it would turn out the way it was. But at the same time, you cannot reward somebody rounds just because they're doing better than expected. And for me, that whilst Tyson Fury was abysmal, he still did enough to pinch the fight, which is bizarre in saying that we're even discussing this topic. But if that's not a wake-up call that he ever needs from the fact that before the fight he's saying that I could have 15 pints to beat Anthony Joshua and 25 pints to beat Francis Ngannou, last night it was clearly evident that you can't, because at the same time, I wouldn't have argued if Tyson Fury had got beat last night at all. It wasn't a robbery. It was an incredibly close fight, and just because it's close doesn't mean it's a robbery. We've seen robberies, and I put out a tweet before that Sven Otka, Robin Reed, that's a robbery. Evander Holyfield, when he boxed Lennox Lewis, that's a robbery. Timothy Bradley, Manny Pacquiao won. That's a robbery.
Take
Last
that
night,
back.
which one?
Pacquiao Bradley.
Which one?
I would argue that till the end of fucking time. But anyways,
The first one?
What's
no way. The first fight?
yeah, I scored it a draw. I legitimately scored it a draw. I can't believe we're taking this detour. And then there was a really good video done a few weeks after the fight, and I tried to find it. I haven't been able to find it for a while. But they took some really good slow-mos of some of the shots that they were saying that Pacquiao landed with HBO, and I didn't think he landed them. In the first round, the last 20 seconds, they said he landed 3 lefts. Bradley actually rolled all of them. So if you take those 3 lefts out of the way, Bradley won the round. I thought it was, if the first half of the fight was 4-2 Pacquiao, the second half of the fight was 4-2 Bradley.
But fair enough. Like you've given an explanation there, and we can go on and on, and we're detouring. But for
this
me,
wasn't a robbery. I agree with you. I thought it was
Yeah.
that knockdown could have decided it for Ngannou, or Fury could have been just over the hill on it.
exactly that. But I think the big point is that we have
100%
got
with you.
ultimately, we have got a WBC world champion here that ultimately has not been active, and again has proven that fighters cannot just box once a year at best. But it was a weird performance in a sense of that when he got tagged, it was like he didn't know. It's like a person who hadn't been hit before. He didn't really know what to do, and I think, but ultimately early on when he leaned on Ngannou, I think that's where he thought he'd do it. He'd gas him out, he'd bully him in that way. And when Ngannou basically bullied him and pushed him off, Tyson Fury looked like a guy who he didn't really know what to do. And bear in mind, he's a big bloke and he's had it all his own way. Of course, he's been dropped, and what I won't look into, yes, he's been dropped. I'm not bothered about that because he got up and he was absolutely fine. Realistically, he wasn't. When he got dropped by Deontay Wilder, he was genuinely hurt. Then that was it was not a flash knockdown, but as good as he was okay. And I'm not bothered about anybody who you can say he's chinny. No, chinny is somebody who gets a dig on the chin and doesn't get back up. One thing Tyson Fury does do is he's got back up every time. But it was the manner of the performance in a sense of he's either just dicked around and done nothing, or Father Time has finally caught up on him, and everything that he's done is completely shot to bits. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's no shock whatsoever that Frank Warren has come out immediately after the fight and going, oh, he needs protecting from himself, and that fight's not going ahead against Alexander Usyk just before Christmas. I think if Tyson Fury had banged him out inside a round or two, there's absolutely no question that fight would have gone ahead. But now it's all about he's had a difficult 12-week camp, he's been away from his family, this and that. For me, it's a fight from where, if he'd have boxed, say, whoever, a Chaz Witherspoon, a Marius Wack, and he puts in a lackluster performance and binks a decision that you can argue it wasn't necessarily deserved, people would just be like, he's had an off night, and that is absolutely fine. That happens in competitive sport, and not everybody can perform on the best of nights. But I think it's the fact that who it was against and all the talk that he gave makes it as good as unacceptable. And it was just bizarre, unpredictable. And if anything, that despite that he got the win, it's done more damage to his career than anything else. No one cares about him getting dropped by like Nevin Pajcik a long time ago and Steve Cunningham and things like that. But when you are dropped, bullied, cut, and arguably got beat by somebody who has never boxed a professional fight in their life, and we're not talking about a Lomachenko, by the way, who's been a fantastic amateur and has turned over and decided to box, one of the best in the world at that time. We're not talking about somebody like that. We're talking about a guy that is solely MMA, has never boxed in his life, has ultimately learned on the job in the last, 4 months, and ultimately looked like he could go, cause any heavyweight sort of problems. Still think people are saying Deontay Wilder, get him in with him next. Deontay Wilder and knock Ngannou into next week. But the fact is that performance, you can only judge him off that. And everybody's looking at it and thinking, what is going on? And it's a performance that Tyson Fury can't look back at and think, I'm happy. And all this talk of a fighting man and I'm a warrior, it goes out the window when you turn in something like that last night.
Ozzy, are we holding Tyson Fury to an unrealistic standard? Because you said there that Wilder 2 is pretty much the benchmark of where we think Tyson Fury should be. But he's never done anything like that before that fight, and he's not done nothing like it since. So do we hold Tyson Fury to an unrealistic benchmark? Was Wilder 2 Tyson Fury's Lloyd Honeyghan, Don Curry moment? Was it something he's achieved, but will never get close to it again?
No, for me, I thought his performance against Vladimir Klitschko was more impressive because pretty much aside from the odd person, not many people gave Tyson Fury a go against Vladimir Klitschko at all. It was all talk, it was all hype, and it was ultimately what we know Tyson Fury for. He talks the talk, and prior to that, he couldn't walk the walk, and we saw him. He got dropped off Steve Cunningham. He had his difficult moments, but then he went over to Germany and he boxed the fight of his life. And whilst the cards were close, for me, he walked that fight, and he was a level above. But I understand that in a sense of particularly after and even the first Wilder fight, I thought he won that fight as well. And that's the bizarre thing from when he was fat as a pig, but within 3 fights, he's boxing for the world title. And for me, beat Deontay Wilder and got up off a thunderous punch. And we all thought he was gone, got up, and then arguably won the round the way he finished. And I understand about holding him to high standards, but when he talks about being the best of the generation and the best heavyweight in the world at this time, then quite rightly, fans should hold him to account and should hold him to a high standard. And for me last night, that no matter what level you are, I think, to be fair, that I thought Ngannou, he looked okay, actually. For most MMA fights, they square up and the front on and they can easily get digged. I thought Ngannou actually...
I was impressed with Ngannou's hands and feet. I didn't think I didn't think his shape would be that good. Consistently in 10 rounds, you're right.
Yeah, and everybody was saying before that people like Johnny Fisher would bang him out and stuff like that. Well, actually, looking at it, maybe not. And you think that, but maybe Big John Fisher would bang him out, and that's for you smothering more than anything else. But actually, Ngannou might well win ultimately. If you were to put him in for example, on equivalent, would he be an English champion now? Yeah, he probably would actually after what we saw last night.
But pro sport is a crazy bag. So we see David Adelaide last night. Now he's been an international amateur. He's been a national ABA champion. He's been all around the world with GB, and he can't win a British title. And Ngannou hasn't had an amateur bout, never been a boxer, and he goes and takes the lineal champion to a split, and he has to get off the floor to stay with him. So, like we've seen this with footballers, haven't we? They don't stop scoring goals, and they get in the first team, they can't get a kick. We've seen it with sprinters. They're European, they're best in Europe, best in the world. They turn 21, they just can't get under 10. Pro sport's a mixed bag. So I wasn't sure if what I was seeing last night was true. I thought it might be rigged, it might be fixed. I've watched it again today, and I've listened to a lot of conversations, and we're having one now. And if it was organic, and if it was to be believed, and I've got no reason to believe it isn't true, then that's just a sort of mixed bag that pro sports can throw up.
Yeah.
Someone like Ngannou, who's a fighting man, if you can teach him the very basics, he'll get through it.
The big the obvious sign of decline for me last night was the legs, Fury's legs, and I think it has a lot to do with the up and down with the weight. We saw that with Roy Jones years ago with the 20 pounds of muscle, and when he took it off, the legs weren't the same again. Now I know Fury doesn't have to make weight specifically, but I think lads already has an optimum fighting weight, and I don't think it's 270 or 290 or whatever the fuck.
It was like he was 200. He was 275 pounds when he weighed in, and that was with clothes on. But again, when he boxed Sefery, he was a similar weight and weighed in with clothes. I think, but even then, he was incredibly heavy. But you could argue against Sefery. You could understand that they were doing it the right way.
He was dropping the like, and you know that's some of the shit that he's done. Like we're not. Someone said in the chat, like, say it to Fury's face, it does. Like, shut the fuck up with that shit. Like, shut up with that shit. We praised Fury for years on the pod when nobody was giving him praise.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We've always given him credit where credit's due, but we're going to call it as we see it. It's not that we're not doctors because Tyson Fury put in a bad performance. You know what I mean? And if he came on the fucking pod, we would tell him the same as we tell any fighter or any fucking promoter. So give me a break with that shit. Like,
all I say is listen back to the podcast when he boxed Otto Wallin. Not one of us praised him for that performance whatsoever. We all laid into him, and quite right. And just because you're a big name and you're a big fighter, it doesn't mean you're immune to criticism. And last night there is absolutely no way off that performance I can come on this podcast and anybody can and say and defend Tyson Fury whatsoever. We're not. This is what I mean. This is what I said before, that it's not as if he boxed like a Marius Wack or an old school type of an old guy, Andre Rudenko, whoever. Somebody who basically was put in there. He should comfortably win over 10 rounds, non-title fight, knock him out, and that's that. We're talking about a guy that has made his name in mixed martial arts, the UFC. He's never had a professional fight, and ultimately, prior to last night, not one person, aside from I think Mike Tyson and a couple of people who were in the Ngannou camp, gave him a chance. And this is what we said: Tyson Fury is a guy that has said constantly, and even before the fight recently, was saying that he could basically be on the lash all week and still beat these guys. Well, ultimately not. And I am a massive Tyson Fury fan, and I will still go on record and say that I still believe he beats Anthony Joshua. I still believe he beats Alexander Usyk, and he's already beaten Deontay Wilder. Now, it might seem bizarre that I think that, but I genuinely believe last night that Tyson Fury did absolutely nothing when it comes to training. And I think if he ever needs a wake-up call, it's that. And I still think that while styles make fights, Fury is still an incredibly difficult bloke to beat. And if Ngannou, it wasn't a walk in the park for Ngannou, by the way. It's not a clear robbery. It was still close. So it's not as if, he's completely outboxed him and it should have been a, 99-91 sort of scorecard. It's not that. And I'm not giving any credit in terms of that whatsoever to Fury either. But I'll still go on record and believe that Fury is the best heavyweight in the world. Do I think he's in optimum condition? No. But I understand why they're not taking the fight in December as well. But that saying, if he decides to ultimately not take it seriously, I don't think Usyk will knock him out. I just don't believe he's got that power to do that. But I think he'll walk the fight. But that saying, I think Billy Joe, bizarrely, I never ever thought I'd agree with Billy Joe Saunders because he's another one who is a complete gobshite when he wants to be. But he said Tyson Fury has got too many yes men in his camp, and his dad is the biggest one of lot. John Fury is a problem. Tommy Fury is not a good fighter. He's not a good boxer. He's a novice. But when he was with a proper trainer, you could see him developing, and that's fine. Just because of his name, if you called him Tommy Johnson and he was 6-0, you won't be reviewing him the way he is. But he was getting better. As soon as John Fury stuck his nose in and got back involved, Tommy Fury has gone backwards. He looks appalling now. And the same again. His dad, every time he's on the scene, problems happen constantly. And the best thing that can happen to Tyson Fury is he boxes in America permanently. Why is that? Because his dad can't be there. He is a problem. He makes it all about him constantly. You would think it's the John Fury show. You see him again when he KSI Tommy Fury, he's headbutting bloody plastic. He's whipping his top off like Stavros Flatley in the square off against Francis Ngannou. The bloke needs to stop living what he wanted to be his boxing career through his family. That's what he needs to do. He needs to jack it in and just watch from the sideline, because he has a massive impact because of the gypsy life and the respect that they got from the parents, but he just needs to bin it off completely. And until Tyson Fury, I think, bins everybody off, and I saw people talking about, oh, you need to go back to Ben Davidson. No, I disagree with that. Sugar Hill's perfect for him. It works. But let Sugar Hill do what Sugar Hill does. Don't allow outside influences. And Fury should stream everything back going forward. And I genuinely believe he'll beat Alexander Usyk. And I think he could stop him as well. But there's a long way to go. Whether the fight will happen, I'm not sure. But it was a big wake-up call, and Fury's got to strip a lot of things back. And you saw him in the interview after the fight last night, and he looked a beaten up and broken man. Something I never thought I'd say.
You did.
It's a funny division, though, isn't it? There's an asterisk over all of them. Like, we've got an asterisk over Joyce, we've got an asterisk over Fury. There's one over AJ. There's one over Wilder. It's a funny heavyweight division, isn't it?
Mate, to be honest,
well, that's great about the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
it's unpredictable. The big man game is a different game.
No, it is definitely. And I mean, even like Zile Zhang, who has gone and blitzed Joe Joyce twice, there's still an asterisk over him. In a sense of, the controversial win that he had as well. And you kind of forget about that now because the way he went and demolished Joe Joyce. You are right in terms of the big man game that anybody can beat anybody. And if you get hit by somebody who's 18, 19 stone, you're going down if you take it flush. And if you're not, you're going to be buzzed by it. And there's other contenders there. Joseph Parker will be looking at it and thinking, can he come back and win a world title? There's another guy we've not mentioned yet, Martin Bacoli, who again has bloody ballooned up, by the way. But I don't think Carlos Takam is the fighter he was. But nobody has done what Bacoli did to Carlos Takam. And it was quite impressive, actually. And I know Billy Nelson's saying that you're not moving your feet quick enough, but bloody hell, the guy's like 300 pounds. What do you expect? He can't be that.
That was impressive. That was impressive.
But it was,
I didn't see that fight. I didn't see that fight because I was thinking, fuck, 300-pound Bacoli. He had to be massive.
Honestly, I thought, after the weigh-in, I thought this could be a horrendous fight from where Takam actually could potentially pinch a win. In a sense of, I thought Bacoli's he's fat, he's overweight, and he'll gas. But I've got to say, it was impressive. It was impressive the way he dealt with Takam, and he battered him, absolutely battered him. And Bacoli will be a problem. The way he looked last night, I forget when he boxed the Russian guy, Sergey Kuzmin. It was a dire performance. He looks a lot better for that, and he certainly looks developed. But it's a division that after last night, I still believe Tyson Fury's the best, but maybe not by a long way anymore. And it's not what it was at all. And there's no standout wins. And just to finish from me, that I'm seeing a lot of talk about from where Fury's not got these wins and he's not defended his belt enough times, etc. I'm not going to judge Tyson Fury if he defends his belt against people like Eric Molina, Charles Martin, and whatever no mark that they put in as a mandatory and stuff like that. I'm not bothered. That doesn't make Fury any better whatsoever. And it's an argument I saw from where, well, Joshua's beaten this guy and he beat this guy. Well, Anthony Joshua beat Charles Martin for a world title, and Charles Martin won that belt because the Polish bloke dislocated his kneecap or something like that. It was a piss take. It was an absolute gimme. And then he beat Vladimir Klitschko, who'd been sat on a couch for 18 months. So if we want to strip it down, we can pick holes in everybody's resume. Do I give Anthony Joshua credit for beating Eric Molina? Absolutely not. No, whatsoever. Like, we don't just give people credit because they've defended the belt, 6 or 7 times. Look who Kell Brook defended his IBF belt against. They were Jojo Dan and Kevin Bizier, 2 of the worst mandatories I've ever seen.
Frankie Gavin.
Yeah, Frankie. Look at them. 3 fighters ultimately. Gavin on paper is the best out of the lot, But again, hadn't won above a European. I don't think he won a European title. He got knocked out. He got beat off Leonard Bundu. I remember at Wolverhampton Arena. So if we're just judging off defences, yeah, Kell Brook defended his belt 3 times against 3, ultimately 2 no marks and Frankie Gavin, who won a British title. That's it. Fantastic amateur, but nothing else. So I'm not going to judge Fury off of the fact that, oh, he should have beaten, he should have defended his belt more times. But what I will judge him off is that I think his 3 wins against Wilder are very good. Well, sorry, 2 in the draw. And it's easy to say, oh, well, he's only beaten Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's a guy that's been ducked several times, and I think he'll box Anthony Joshua, and I think he'll knock him out. And Wilder's stock will go even higher than it actually is. But what Tyson Fury does need to do now is he needs to box Alexander Usyk, and I think that's the only way that if he boxes Usyk next, no one will give a toss what he did against Francis Ngannou. No one will care, apart from a few MMA fans. No one will be bothered that Francis Ngannou doesn't get an immediate rematch. If Tyson Fury goes into his next fight, whenever it is, and boxes Alexander Usyk and wins, I will not look back and I'll think, yeah, he did have an off night against that, but at the same time, he rebounded, went in against a guy, the only other champion in the division, and he beat him. For me, that's good enough. Now, if he doesn't do that and decides to have a couple of other fights, that's when we can really start to scrutinise him and say, actually, this fighting man is non-existent and you don't want to box him. But again, only time will tell.
I'd like to thank Chris Butler for tossing a $1.99 in there, or a £1.99, as we might say. He is always supportive, and we appreciate that. It was an interesting event full of fat guys, that's for sure, on there. Also had Fabio Wardley stopping David Adelaide in the 7th round. Adelaide didn't appreciate it, kind of went after the referee at the end. Joseph Parker finally deciding he wanted to knock somebody out, landed a smoking uppercut on Simone Keane, who's, you can't really rate much of that victory. The aforementioned Martin Bacoli, all 300 freaking pounds of him, taking out Carlos Takam. Then you had Makhmudov smacking around Junior Anthony Wright for about a minute before that was called off. It was, and then Itoma also getting the stoppage on there. It was an interesting event. I didn't get to see everything that was on there, but I'll tell you what, Des, I kind of have this curiosity of seeing. I'd like to see Bacoli against Gerald Miller. I want to see 600 pounds of pure fucking beef battling it out. Are you with me?
Of course, yeah. We all like Bacoli because he's been the guy on the outside for so long, isn't he? And he's like Mickey Duff said, he's like the chairman of the Who Needs Him club. And he's not ever been aligned with a major promoter. He's not been a flagship fighter for a major network. So he's kind of been the guy that's done his work solidly and quietly on the outside. But I think he done a really good job on Takam. As he said, that's impressive what he done on Takam, because we know Takam's a sparring partner now, but it's still impressive what he done. The job he done on Yoka, I thought I was really impressed with that. And from what I've seen, who was the guy that we see Bacoli fighting in Saudi a couple of months back, or maybe a year ago? Can you recall who it was? Was it?
I'm struggling for that.
He was on the undercard anyway. But my point is, I like what I'm seeing with Bacoli, but you have to ask, what world champion is going to want to get in the ring with Martin Bacoli, and what promoters want to put their fighter in the ring with Martin Bacoli? So, who was the guy you asked if you'd like to see him fight? Did you say Gerald Miller?
Yes, sir.
Put him in we call Makhmudov, no? Would you not put him in with him next?
No, I don't like that fight for either of them. I think Makhmudov's got a lot to learn. I think Makhmudov's a little bit raw. But I know where you're going with this, and I can see it makes sense. But if we're trying to get Bacoli into that mix,
Wallen.
Wallen's a good fight. I like that one. Yeah, Wallen's a good fight. Or Zhang's a good fight for him.
Joseph Parker.
Yeah.
Hrgovic. We
Yeah, that's the level. I like that.
We need to get something going on with these.
That level just below the world champions. I think Bacoli belongs there.
Bacoli just needs a name, right? That's all he needs. He needs a name on his list.
He does.
I mean,
yeah.
Zhang's a name, but at this point as well, but he's a dangerous one, isn't
No,
it? Yeah.
Zhang's too dangerous. You can't take that.
You
But
don't want
I
to be
think
going in.
Bacoli's
Yeah,
dangerous.
You've
I
got to
think
take that
Bacoli's
opportunity if you get the Zhang fight. If you offered Zhang, he's a world champion.
You've got to take that.
Or he's interim champion,
Interim,
sorry.
yeah.
But it would be a mandatory, you know.
I don't think he doesn't want to be 300 pounds going in against Zhang, though. That would be my advice to him.
No, I have to assume that was a calculated. That was some sort of calculated. They've done that that was by design. You can't just put on that sort of weight by accident. They've obviously worked for that. They might be experimenting because they must. I think Bacoli and Taco know each other pretty well. They've been in gyms together. They've been on the circuit together. So I can only assume Bacoli is experimenting with his weight, and that's why he done that last night. That's not to stay. That weight can't. That surely can't stay.
Yeah, he was 20 pounds higher than his previous high weight, I think.
Just going to
He was
check actually, see what
freaking
his
up there.
high's
We'll
been.
see.
Let's see what his
I thought I
high's
might have
been.
seen he was a 285 in there somewhere at some point, but you got to remember he was 250 pounds only like 2-3 years ago. So
He's only had
it's
21
not
fights as
necessarily
well.
the size; it's how much he's put on in a space of time.
Well, his thing is he's been getting bigger over the last 2-3 years. 251 in 2020, and then he's gone up to 282, 275, 280, now 299.
A gentleman by the name of London says, all these on this chat and in live stream talk absolutely crap. Any Fury, even Tommy, would smash you to bits. John would destroy your lives. Go try, pull someone else down. He on way. Better levels that you.
Go on, fuck off.
Is
Go
that
on,
Isaac?
fuck off.
That's Isaac Low. That's Isaac Low there. You've got to
I'll
be.
tell you what.
Isaac Low. Isaac.
We're putting him right onto London now. London can come on and discuss his points now. If we're too much to if we won't say it to the Fury's face, then London can come and say it to us live on air now. Let him join, let him say his point, and let's discuss it. Rather than just talk in the chat, let him jump on the call now and let's discuss it.
And we're not bashing boxers here. We're not stripping people down. We're lifting people, if anything. We're talking about a subject that's out there in the public domain. We watch guys box every week. We're informed,
He
we're
didn't
knowledgeable,
fight
and we're
well.
entitled to have an opinion.
He didn't fight well. What do you
didn't
want
fight
from us?
well.
When he beat the shit out of Wilder, we were singing his praises. When you go back and listen to him. All you have to do is type in the subject into YouTube. You can go back and listen to his praise and Fury. But he's not going to get praise off us for fucking looking like shit against an MMA fighter making his debut. Get a life for yourself. Fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And Matty,
Fury at his bet. Yeah.
Going back to your question, I think we're all excited and a little bit interested in Bacoli because we know a lot about him, but we don't know enough about him. So Bacoli against any of that group, just under the world champions, whether it's Parker, Zhang, Joyce, Huey, AJ, Bacoli against any of them is a really exciting fight for your boxing fan.
They're not taking it though, are they? And this
No.
is what I put up before, in a sense of that the game has been ruined by promoters, money, and broadcasters. In a sense of gone are the days of have gloves, will travel. It's all about business decisions. It's all about broadcasters. It's all about he's not a known name, so we're not going to box him, and we'll go a different route. It's all about that, and sadly for Martin Bacoli is that whilst he's got bags of talent, and again, Billy, and I'll give it to Billy Nelson, he's banged the drum for years about Bacoli, and he had to eat it when, by the way, Bacoli jacked it against Michael Hunter. He had to eat that, but it was one of those that he basically he's come back, he's looked
And
good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he has rebuilt, and what he'll have to do now is the only way he's going to do it is by getting himself into some sort of mandatory position from where somebody has got no choice but to box him. I'm pretty sure Golovkin was like that years ago. I remember when Eddie Hearn was looking for an opportunity for, I think it was Darren Barker, looking for a world title opportunity, and pretty much Golovkin was willing to come over and box for nothing. Pretty much, a few tickets here and a few quid, and they basically jacked him when we're not boxing this guy. There's absolutely no point. that's the problem with Bacoli, that he's a massive risk for absolutely no reward whatsoever. And that's what I mean about gone are the days when we're actually I'll box him. And that's what Hunter did. Hunter came over here, boxed him and beat him. And now no one's going to do that. And we've seen it before and we'll see it again. And until something changes in the sport, then it's always going to be. And that's why I believe when you mentioned about David Adelaide before that, David Adelaide's got the beating of Fabio Wardley. The fundamentals are there. And at times I thought in the fight that he actually showed that he can outbox Fabio Wardley. But the big thing is that look at the way he was matched coming up. It's horrendous. And we've always said that Frank Warren used to be the master of matching people at the right time. But gone are the days of that now, because you do not get the blessing off the broadcaster. They want quick, instant results with a big name. And Adelaide has boxed nobodies, banged them out, apart from Kamil Sokolowski, who he got beat off, in my opinion. And then he's talked his way into this mandatory opportunity. And when the going got tough, he got banged out.
And Ozzy, you hit the nail. You touched on something there. You hit the nail on the head. When Adelaide turned over, he would have had a bit of signing on money. He would have had a bit of upfront. He'd have had a good purse per round. He'd have been told you're going to get out at least 4 times this year. Yeah. They'd have had a pathway for 2 or 3 years for him to a British title. Yeah. So that's the investment. So the promoters and the network would have sat down and said, we've got to guide this kid through stormy waters. We've got to get him through a minefield. Now, the opposite to that is Fabio Wardley, who had no amateurs, who had a few white collars, and he'd have had no money up front. And the promoter would have said, I'm not going to waste my time with this kid unless I know a bit about him. So if you look at the way Wardley's been matched, he's been matched really sternly, like rigidly.
Yep, absolutely.
And he's had to come through it. And look at the result when you get there. He's a better fighter for it.
I just got to give props to Wardley while we're talking about him, because I fancied him in that fight last night, and he backed it up. He really backed it up. You know, he's shown a very good chin throughout his fight so far. He showed some grit, and he pulled through it last night, and I thought he was brilliant.
But lads, do you think this is the problem? We're talking about finance and investment, and I'll ask you all about this. When you say like a Joe Parker signs with Boxer, I don't know if he's still with Boxer, but let's just take that as an example. Joe Parker signs with Boxer. He sits down at the table and says, I've been all around the world. I'm a former world champion. I've done big numbers previously. I want a 5-fight deal and this much money guaranteed. They have to match him slowly. They have to match him soft. Yeah. You can't give Parker to Bacoli, because Bacoli could turn him over. And then where do you go with your investment?
Exactly that, and that is the problem. And I've nothing against that. For example, like what they're doing with Moses Atoma, absolutely no issue with that. The guy, he's a kid basically. I mean, you look at him, he doesn't look it, but he is a baby when it comes to boxing, and I have no problem with them taking whatever 10, 12 fights or something like that. Get him active, boxing 5-6 times a year, do it for 2 years running, and develop him slowly. But sadly,
especially after what happened to his brother.
I absolutely that 100%, because look at what happened to Carol Atoma. He got banged out off a guy. It's like he didn't know what to do. He kept getting jabbed, he kept getting banged, like peppered, and he just didn't know what to do. He couldn't move his head basically. So I'm nothing against developing a prospect, and I think we said it a while ago about Conor Benn. But what you don't want is throw it down the fans' feet and stuff like that. You don't want that. You don't want it down the throats all the time. Box them off TV. Go and get 3 or 4 fights just in the dark, essentially. We don't need to see these fighters every time. Then bring them back, and then what you do is get them on telly, let them blitz somebody, and then everybody goes, bloody hell. Joe Bloggs has developed in the last 12 months. He's gone from looking horrendous to unbelievable in 12 months. He looks great, but you don't get that anymore. And again, like I say with Adelaide, he wasn't just this novice amateur. He was a proper, he's got the background and everything. And for me, he's just been matched horrendously. And we've seen it with others as well, that gone are the days, and everybody knows who listens to this podcast, I'm a big believer of the traditional route, that is area level, English level, Commonwealth, British, European, continental, world title. You go through that route, you will regularly fail. And even if you come unstuck, You can still bounce back. I remember Anthony Crolla getting beat off Jordan Vasilev. Crolla went on to win a world title. That don't mean Jordan Vasilev can go and win a world title whatsoever. But you will come unstuck at times, potentially in your career, but you can bounce back from it. But when you are rushed through a level to appease promoters and to appease broadcasters, sometimes it is harder to bounce back because you have not got that experience. The last person I can remember doing it recently is someone like Josh Warrington or Billy Joe Saunders. And look what level they got to before coming unstuck.
I agree with all that, but sadly, with Atoma and Adelaide and Wardley and to Daniel Dubois to a degree as well, is that age of their opponents is not on their side. If that makes sense, there's not an absolute blistering list of heavyweights coming up that they can, almost learn off. To me now, like for someone like Atoma, like he needs to face someone, maybe even a name coming up in his next kind of 5 fights. Otherwise, they're all just going to disappear. Like there's going to be no one with any kind of talent at all. And he's just going to be stuck there, just potentially having round robins with the people that are there in and around him, which we've seen to this point, and no great shakes at all.
Yeah, I understand that. And about that was the beauty about Joe Joyce, is when he turned over, of course, Joyce had this. We all knew Joyce was better than when he turned over. He ultimately could have boxed for it. But look who they matched him with in his debut. Ian Lewison. Ian Lewison, someone like that would be perfect for like Atoma. And when they matched Dubois, I liked the way they were bringing Dubois through. Then Warren just went this rogue route of boxing, like these unknown Ghanaians who were Ebenezer Tetes, who were doing spins in the ring in previous fights. And what was the Japanese guy? Kayatoro Fujimoto, people like that.
Yeah, that coincided though, was he? That coincided with Warren going from Box Nation to BT, and you could have guaranteed he sat down in office with heads of networks and said, "I've got this 21-year-old who's going to be the next world champion," and they've matched him accordingly. Now they've matched him soft because they can't burst that bubble now. So I agree. When he was a Box Nation, you saw a better version of Dubois.
But what did they do though? I was going to say they lobbed him in though completely. I think they put him in with Joyce because I think they thought he beat Joe Joyce as well. By the way,
they did.
And I by the way, I was on the Dubois hype train and thought he beat Joe Joyce as well. But then it was that fight that summed it up. That you thought if you'd have had 2 or 3 more fights from where you could have developed and learned, you could have beaten Joe Joyce in that fight. But he didn't, and he went in off the back of that, beating Fujimoto, who was trash and rubbish. Just absolute nothing. He won't win an area title, that Fujimoto, and that is what happens to guys that aren't matched properly. I always said it about mate of mine, Jack Catterall, that Warren did the same. That Jack, we've all seen it. When he went into the Taylor fight, I was one of the only people that gave him a real chance against Josh Taylor, and that might have been blind biasness and anything else. But I'd seen what he can do and the fighter he was. But I still said, though, prior to that fight, that I would have liked him to have had 2 or 3 more legit tests just to get that gut check and know that he can compete at that level. Sometimes you can show it and you get that, but 9 times out of 10, you will fall short. And we've seen it far too often that guys do fall short every time because, and this is what I relay back to my original point, that promoters and broadcasters are ruining the sport. Yes, they give people opportunity to earn big money, but at the same time as well, it's like raising a lamb for slaughter. They will just throw you in at the depths, and if you're not good enough, you get beat and you get potted, and you've got to really work your way back up. Sometimes going on to the small shows and earning nothing.